Does homemaking feel more like a burden than it does a blessing? If it does, then you are going to want to stay tuned to this week's episode because I'm going to talk about 5 things you can do to find joy as a homemaker. Thank you for joining me in this week's episode. So before we jump into how to find joy in homemaking, I feel like I kind of need to define what a homemaker is. You see, when I first before I became a stay-at-home mom and I was working, I felt like homemakers were just people who their only job was being at home and just all they did was take care of their home. And honestly, I had kind of a negative view about homemaking and stay-at-home moms in general. And so what I had to come to realize is that even when I was working full-time, I was still a homemaker. That wasn't necessarily my primary role or my only role, but I was still creating a home. And I mean, the definition is in the actual word, homemaker. They are actually making a home. And even when I was single, before I was married, I had a home that I stayed in. I rented a room, and that was my space that was my own. That was where I resided and where I found comfort and safety and just where I was able to be myself. And so I was able to create a home for myself there, and I was doing homemaking even though I didn't realize it. And then I got married, and of course, with my husband, we split our roles as to what we were doing. So I took on a lot of the homemaking responsibilities, making the meals and cleaning the house and that sort of thing. I didn't do all of it, but I did a lot of it, and it felt like such a burden. I would save it all throughout the week, and so come Saturday morning when I didn't work, I would have this crazy, messy house that I had to clean up. So I would have dishes piled high in the sink and on the countertop because I hadn't done them all week. We didn't eat a whole lot at home. We did eat a few meals at home, but we would eat out, probably 3 or 4 times in the evening. But meals from lunches and breakfast and things just all piled up, and from cooking, the few meals that we did at home. And then there would be laundry that would pile up, and I wouldn't do laundry until the end of the week. And then I'd have to clean the bathrooms and sweep and mop. And the whole time I was doing this, I was complaining. And maybe not necessarily saying it out loud, but in my mind, under my breath, I was just talking about how I hated doing it and I didn't want to do it. And I just had a terrible, terrible attitude. And so I was not a fan of homemaking in general. And then I became a stay-at-home mom after my son was born. So this was 6 years after we had been married. And I felt like I was now a homemaker. I was a stay-at-home mom. And I was like, I have got to figure this out so that I'm not like miserable every single day doing this. And so really what I've come to find is that there is joy in being a homemaker. And so what I've found is that homemaking can actually take on a lot of different views or pictures. It can look a lot of different ways. So I was a homemaker when I was single. I was a homemaker when I was married and lived in a single wide mobile home. I was a homemaker when I was a teacher and working full time. I was also a homemaker when that was my whole role. I was just at home, making a home for my family, caring for my baby. And now as the years have morphed and the years have passed and I have morphed, I have changed. I have become a homeschooling mom, but I'm still a homemaker. I have become a work from home mom and I'm still a homemaker. And so homemaking will always be a priority in my life. And I've had to come to a point where I've said, okay, I'm going to enjoy being a homemaker and the homemaking tasks. And I'm not going to think of it as just something that I have to do and get it over with. So today I want to share with you those 5 things that help me find the joy in homemaking and hopefully can help you as well. Okay, so number 1, and this is the one that I started with, is understanding why you are a homemaker. Understanding why homemaking is not only essential and necessary, but also why you make it a priority, why you make it something that is of importance in your life. And so there's going to be like general reasons why you choose to create a home for your family. For me, I had to like sit down and get out a piece of paper and just write them out so that I was really crystal clear on the reasons why I was a homemaker. And some of those reasons were, number one, I wanted to honor God with what I did. And so the verse that really stuck out to me is that whatever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might. And that includes everything that your hand finds to do, whether it's big or small. And sometimes I think as homemaking, we see that as just like little things, little tasks that we're doing throughout the day that maybe don't mean a whole lot because we're not out there changing the world. It doesn't seem like we're not like creating big deals with a company or don't have necessarily a job outside of the home. And so it may feel like little things, washing the dishes or folding the laundry or changing a diaper or wiping a nose, whatever it might be. But it doesn't matter whether it's big or small. Whatever our hand finds to do, we're to do it to the honor and glory of God. And that was really convicting and encouraging to me. And so that's a reason why I'm a homemaker and why I do what I do. It's so that I can bring honor and glory to God. Another reason that I choose to homemake and to make that a priority is it is a way to show love to my family, to serve them. And I make my family a priority when I make homemaking a priority, when I make sure that there are clean dishes for them to eat off of and clean clothes for them to wear, and the floor is able to be walked on bare feet if they need to, because it's not full of crumbs that haven't been swept up for days or mopped up and things like that. But that is another reason why I choose homemaking. And then even beyond that, I found that there were certain homemaking tasks which were really difficult for me to really motivate myself to do. One of them is dusting. I've said this before, and maybe you've heard me say this, but dusting is one of my least favorite chores, that and scrubbing the shower. And so I found that I was often putting those chores off and not wanting to do them. And so I really had to get really specific and say, why is it that I dust? And so I looked up those reasons that, dust is not good for my family's health and overall well-being, besides just the fact that, someone doesn't want to put their hand down on a side table and it be covered in dust. And so knowing why I do that is a big way to find joy in doing those tasks. So if there is a task that you tend to kind of put off, think about why it is that you do those tasks. And that's going to give you more motivation and more joy as you do those things around your home. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, another way to find joy in homemaking is to be present. So whatever task that you are doing, and you're doing it with all your might, are you present? Because I found that I wasn't really present. I was often thinking about what else I wanted to do or the next thing that I needed to do. And I wasn't present in, right there washing the dishes, just feeling the water on my skin and, washing them clean and really focusing on that. I was thinking about something else or watching a YouTube video or complaining. And I wasn't present in that moment. And it's even in things like with my kids that I've had to realize, like when I'm reading them a book, just sitting there, slowing down, enjoying having them sit next to me and reading the book, even if it's like the 20th time that I've read that book this week, I can still enjoy that moment and be present in it instead of constantly thinking about, I wish I was doing something else, and just finding joy in that moment and being present. So that's number two. Number three is doing extra things that I enjoy when it comes to homemaking. So one of the things that I really do love is decorating my home. I wouldn't say that I'm a decorator or that I'm like super gifted in it, or, I couldn't go and design a home or something like that, but I like to create a new wreath for my front door. I like to style the shelves in my living room. I like to light candles, especially at night when the kitchen is clean and the dining room has been wiped down and swept. One of the final touches that I like to do if I have a candle on hand is to light a candle. And it just adds to the atmosphere in the home. It makes it smell good, and it's just kind of a nice reward for after I have cleaned up from dinner. Especially in the winter months when it starts to get darker out earlier, it's nice to just have that glowing, flickering candle going, and then of course all the different holiday scents is fun too. So those are just things that I enjoy. Maybe you like plants and you want to add some more plants to your home. Or maybe it is, like a special cleaner that you buy. I used to buy the Mrs. Meyer's hand soaps because I just loved how they smelled. But maybe it's, getting nice dish towels that you can use in the kitchen so that it's not like you're pulling out your old raggedy ones to dry the dishes, but maybe it's these really nice dish towels that you enjoy using as you dry the dishes. Just simple things like that you can add to the joy of things in your home, where you're not just kind of giving it, your leftovers, and not looking for the little things that you can enjoy. Instead, you're adding to your home and your routines things that you look forward to. Another thing, this is just really simple too, but like my mornings. I get up before my kids and I like to get in a load of laundry, and I like to eat breakfast in the mornings and clean up the kitchen and all that. But one of the things that I really enjoy is a hot cup of coffee. And so that's just a little thing that it's part of my morning routine, which is part of homemaking, that I find joy in. And so that's important to me. So what is something extra that you could add? Doesn't have to necessarily cost money, but something extra that you could add into your homemaking that is something you would look forward to, something you would enjoy. I would love to hear it in the comments. If you get done watching this video and you're like, yeah, I could add that in, then let me know what that is. Okay, so let's move on to number 4. We are on number 4. Okay, and that is to plan. And I know that might sound like finding joy in homemaking by planning, what? But here's the deal. When we don't plan for the homemaking tasks that need to get done, we often feel overwhelmed. And when we feel overwhelmed and we don't know what to do, we feel like there's so much to do and we don't have a plan for what needs to get done. That's what just kind of sucks the joy out of homemaking. And it feels like a never-ending task that it feels like a burden it's hard to carry. And so what I have found works really well for me is to use a planner. So the planner that I use is by Bloom. I love that it has a vertical layout, and it has so many different things. So you have the month, and then you also have the vertical layout for each week. And there's just so many things included in this planner, and it's really affordable. So that's the one that I choose, but I love just having things written out. Every week, I try to do this on Sunday afternoons. I will make a weekly plan. And if I don't get to it Sunday afternoons, sometimes it'll be Monday morning, or if I'm really working ahead of time, I'll do it on like a Saturday afternoon. But it really doesn't matter when you do it. Just pick a day of the week where you're going to plan for the following week. And specifically, you're going to want to plan for the homemaking tasks that need to get done. And so for me, I have my daily morning and evening routines and some chores that get done with that. But then I have some things that just get done once a week, like changing the bed sheets, mopping the floors, cleaning the bathrooms, that kind of thing. And so I will plan those out and write them out in my planner so that I know about when I want to get those done. And some days I don't get to them, and so I move them to the next day. I like to do my plans in pencil, by the way. And then I also plan out the meals. So I have a plan for the week of meals, and I plan out homeschooling, and I plan out just different maybe appointments that we have or events that we have for the week so that I know what's coming ahead. And having that plan just makes me feel, it brings me joy. It just makes me feel so good to know that I know what's coming up. I'm not going to be wondering at, 5 o'clock at night, what are we going to have for supper because I haven't made a plan, or, my bathroom is filthy and I have no idea when I'm going to clean it. No, I actually do because I've made that plan. And that just makes me feel more at peace and brings me more joy. So I would suggest doing the same thing, making yourself a weekly plan and then following through with it. And so that's why I love having it written down on paper, because I can just cross it off when it's done, which that's like another bonus joy that you can bring to your life is when you get it done, just making sure you check it off because it's like, yes, success, I finished something. And so that is really important, making a plan. All right, number 5 is choose contentment every single day. It is a choice, and it has to be made every day. It doesn't just, you make it one time and then you're good. You have to choose contentment every single day as a homemaker. The truth is that no matter what, even when I was working full-time outside the home, I wasn't necessarily always content. And it was a choice that I was making. And so no matter what role you find yourself in, you always have to choose contentment, because there's always going to be pros and there's always going to be cons. One of my favorite quotes that my mom used to say was to bloom where you are planted. So just making the best of the situation that you are in. Another quote that you've probably heard is, the grass is greener where you water it. So it's not always greener on the other side of the fence. It can be green on your side of the fence too if you water it, if you give it the things that it needs to grow and to bring you joy and bring you happiness. And so every day you get to decide the thoughts that you think about homemaking, and you can choose contentment. When I was in those early days of being a homemaker and like leaving all of my homemaking tasks to the weekend and then walking around complaining about it while I was doing the dishes or doing the laundry, I was reiterating the discontentment in my life and the discontentment that I had with all of these homemaking chores. When what would have served me even better is if I had just stopped those negative thoughts right then and replaced them with contentment and thoughts of happiness and thankfulness. Instead of complaining about the dishes, I could have chosen contentment to say, hey, I was able to feed my family this week. That's why I have these dirty dishes. I have a family that loves me and I love them, and that's why I have these dirty dishes to wash. And when we think about it that way and we choose contentment in each of those chores and choose thankfulness, that will bring you so much joy and peace. I remember early on, and I was trying to remember, I asked my husband about this, but I watched a basketball documentary with him years ago. It was right when I had just transitioned into being a stay-at-home mom. My son was still a baby, and I was just in that time where I was not content being a stay-at-home mom, and I was kind of miserable and feeling like I needed to figure something out, but I just didn't know what. And one of the things that really stood out to me, we were watching this basketball documentary, and I can't remember the name of the basketball player. I wish I could, but he was talking about how during the middle of the season, he had been the star player, and then some other players had been traded in, and they became the star player of the team, and he was kind of pushed down a little bit. And instead of choosing to be upset about that, he chose contentment, and he said, we all have a role to play. And he specifically said, you know, whether it's me as a basketball player and then he brought up a couple of different jobs and roles. And then one of the things he said was, or even stay-at-home moms, they have a role to play. And I remember hearing that and thinking, did he just say that? And I took it personally, like, yeah, I'm a stay-at-home mom and I get to choose that contentment and my role is important. And so, that was just, I feel like that was just a sign from God, or something that God used in my life to help me kind of be the catalyst to choosing contentment. But I just encourage you today to think about the thoughts that are going through your mind as you think about homemaking, especially as you do the different tasks. Do you find yourself complaining about them? Do you find yourself just talking negatively about the different things that you have to do? Because if you are, then choose to stop those negative thoughts and change them into thankfulness and contentment. And that will change your attitude so much, and you will notice a difference in the joy that you find in homemaking. Okay, so I'm not sure what number we are on. I think that was it. That was number 5. Okay, so I hope that you enjoyed today's episode, this week's episode. If you are enjoying these podcast episode type style videos here on YouTube, I would ask that you give it a like if you like them. Of course, I always want to hear your feedback in the comments below. If anything resonated with you, if you disagree with anything, you can always write that too, as well, as long as, you know, it's respectful and all of that. But yeah, and I would also love if you could share with other people in your life that you know would enjoy these types of videos and listening to these types of this type of content. So, all right, thanks again, and I will see you in next week's podcast video episode, and I hope you have a great week. Bye.